Let's take a closer look at the Migs Mayfeld action figure from Hasbro's The Vintage Collection, VC229. Villa Varykino, living the Star Wars life. This new figure showed up at our local store yesterday in pretty good numbers, so we're really excited to add him to our collection. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the carded figure before we open him up. So of course this is Migs Mayfeld in his Juggernaut transport driver disguise that he wears on Morak in season 2 of The Mandalorian. That is chapter 15, The Believer, which is of course episode 7 of season 2, bit confusing with the numbering there. But this is a great addition to the Mandalorian line of 3 3/4 inch figures. So we can see we've got the classic figure here against a red backdrop with a removable helmet and one blaster pistol. So not too heavy on the accessories, but there's nothing extra here that we don't really need, so that's good. So very keen to open them up and take a closer look. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the backing card now that we've removed the figure. So of course this is a vintage collection line figure, so we've got the classic racetrack design here with the lovely black. We've got the red Mandalorian logo here at the top, and we've also got red for the nameplate and the panel behind the figure. I really like that. We've got a promotional shot here of Bill Burr in his Juggernaut transport driver disguise as Migs Mayfeld on the planet Morak from the Mandalorian episode. We've got some neat foliage behind him. So yeah, great design there. Let's have a look here at the back. We have got the other figures in the wave. Very, very keen. Hopefully Cosca and Axe Woobs show up locally. Fingers crossed. We're very keen to add those to our collection. We can see this is VC229. So I've just left the price sticker on here because there's a few interesting notes here. We can see that it has SW Vin Violet. Apparently that is the sort of code name for this figure, so that it's sort of still running with its sort of code name instead of just actually having the character name there. And the price tag here. So this is a little bit of a frustrating note here. In the US, this is a Target exclusive figure. On the Target website, it is currently listed for $13.99 US. As you can see here in New Zealand, this is $34.99. That translates to approximately US $21.50. So as you can see, we're paying a little bit more for our figures here in New Zealand. This vintage collection figures usually go for $29.99 locally. This one is $5 more expensive. We are assuming that is because it is an exclusive figure, that they're charging a little bit of a markup, a premium for it, you know, as an exclusive, but still that's a little bit of a jump up. Thankfully, the department store farmers had a 20% off toys, so we were able to get this on sale, but still it hurts a little bit. But yeah, of course it's a cool figure, cool character. We definitely needed it for a collection. So now that we've taken a look at the backing card, let's jump into the figure. So let's take a closer look at the figure now that we've taken him off the backing card. So of course this is Bill Burr as Migs Mayfeld, so we've got a really good likeness to the sculpt here. I think it's a really good, I can almost hear him speaking when I look at the figure. It's even got sort of some forehead lines, some really good paint app on the beard here. There is a subtle line across the top of the head from the sculpting, from the sort of the casting process for the head. Normally this is kind of not too obvious with helmet and hair. We kind of see it a little bit because we're just dealing with a sort of a smooth surface there. It's going to show up a little bit more cleanly, but all in all, not too distracting, very minimal. Certainly from sort of being on the shelf distance, you're not really going to notice it, especially if you position them forward. You can't really see it there at all on the top of the head. So moving on, I really like the range of greens here that they've used for the Juggernaut transport driver disguise here. This is, of course, sort of a mix of Imperial components we recognize from different ones. It's sort of fun to see the way that they are designing some of the new Imperial outfits for the sort of new era in The Mandalorian and stuff like that. So we see things, this sort of reminds me of the snowtroopers and stuff like that. It's really quite fun. I like the paint job here. We've got some weathering, you know, sort of a bit cleaner on the back. I like the weathering detail here. I particularly like the weathering on the shins here. It's really quite an interesting, like, it's hard to see sort of on camera, but in person it looks like tiny little dots. I almost wonder if this is a digital print of some sort, because it looks really quite clean. Unfortunately, it's really hard to sort of see it unless you're really looking close in person, but I really like the way that they've kind of done this spray on the boots and the shin guards. It's definitely worth checking that one out in person. So we've got a sort of a classic action figure sculpt and pose here. We've got articulation at the ankles, classic ones at the knees. We have a one you can see here. We have a sort of an upper thigh. Can't see if you can see that there. There is a sort of a line at the upper thigh, so we can get some sort of upper thigh rotation. We can move the legs side to side there. We have classic hip articulation for the legs moving forward and back. Now, interestingly, just handling this figure, there looks like a line here at the belt, but he doesn't move at the waist. The articulation's hidden here under the armor there, so we can sort of move him. You can see the belt doesn't move at the same time, so he can spin, he can sort of rock backwards and forwards a little bit here. I think that's interesting. I like it when they find ways to include articulation that doesn't kind of be obvious around the sculpting of the figure itself, the way that they use the sort of costume design to sort of hide articulation. I particularly like that, particularly on the small scale. Some of the movements can always seem a bit sort of a bit clunky. We've got classic sort of wrist articulation here, a little bit tight there. We've got elbow joints, also nice, and I like, particularly with the elbows and shoulders, I like stiff poses, particularly if you've got them holding a weapon. Over time, they can sort of droop if the articulation feels a bit soft or a bit loose. Got some nice movement there. Nice and clean articulation here around the shoulders. It's not sort of getting in the way. And we've got a nice head articulation there, just under the jawline. You can see we've got some good movability there. Quite good. Not too much to say about the back, you know, nice clean paint. You know, got some good, I like the sort of rippled sort of fabric detail here on the pants. I quite like that, you know. Bit different to just sort of the standard sculpts that we used to get. I like the detail there. This paint job on the shins is really, I really do like that. I think it looks really quite neat. So yeah, one final note about the paint job is the red armband here. So if you're particularly keen-eyed, you may note that only Din Djarin has a red sort of armor piece here on the bicep. In the episode, Migs does not. So this is obviously a bit of a factory error, but it's become a variant. The very early shipment of this figure comes with a red arm. Subsequent releases, it's green. I don't know whether they have fixed that at the factory level or whether they quickly sort of grabbed some figures and repainted those green before they got packaged. So yeah, the ones that we got here in New Zealand on the shelf, they all have this red armband with this very subtle yellow detailing. So if you're into variant collecting, that is something to pay attention to. You might want to track down both versions. Obviously, this one is technically inaccurate based on how he appears in the show, but I don't know if it bothers me enough to track down one of the other variants. Who knows if we'll see that available locally, but just something to note if you're that sort of person that either wants super accuracy or likes to collect, you know, paint app variants. So yeah, some good articulation, good likeness. All in all, a good figure. Yeah, I think it was a really fun episode, so of course we're very excited to sort of add some characters and specific outfits from that episode to our Mandalorian collection. So let's have a look at some of the accessories. So he comes with this little sort of Imperial blaster here. This one is known as the Blastech SE14R. So a little bit of trivia. It first appeared in a promotional Stormtrooper photo for A New Hope, but of course these Stormtroopers use E11 blasters in the movie. They are not seen using this weapon. So in the modern era, I guess it's just a sort of a fun little Easter egg for the fans. They have included this blaster for some of the Imperial troopers. So of course it's now sort of an official Imperial weapon. So of course, because he has stolen a disguise, he has an Imperial weapon here. So it's a light repeating blaster. We can see that it has a long scope, and we can see on the figure here we have got a wide sculpted holster here. So let's see how well this is going to fit in. I think the scope will sit on the outside. Let's see, trying to do this a little bit one-handed here. That seems to fit in there quite nicely. The scope sits on the outside. It pushes out a little bit. I don't know how well that shows up, so you can sort of see the scope is sitting here just a little bit outside, but it tucks in there neatly. So if you like to sort of pose them in scenes where they're not always holding all their weapons, it fits in there nicely. Doesn't feel like it's at risk of falling out. It's not loose. So that's nice. And of course, the other main accessory that this figure comes with is his helmet. So this one is a actual helmet to fit over the figure. It is not a sort of figure where you can pop off the head and have a sculpted sort of helmeted version to pop on. So of course, the moment of truth, let's see how well this one fits over his sculpted head. It's probably a bit easier because, as you can see, here's a bald character. We don't have additional hair sculpt to get in the way. So I'm hoping that it will fit in quite nicely. Oh, look at that. That fits. Wow, you can't even see his neck or anything. Wow, that fits really nicely. Okay, that's really quite nice. Sometimes they end up being a bit bobble-headed. The helmet is larger than true to scale to fit over the head, or it kind of doesn't go all the way down and you can still see sort of chin and neck and everything like that. So if you want to sort of army build, you can actually do it with this character because you can't actually really see that it's a face character underneath. It fits in there quite nicely. How about that? Good paint app, you know, a bit of distressing, sort of scorching black marks on there. That's really quite neat. Look how well that fits on him. I'm really quite impressed with that. It always used to bug me when the helmets looked too big or they sat up and you could clearly see face and human neck. Because of course, the Imperial characters, Imperial troopers and that tend to wear neck seals and that, so they have a black neck. So it always looks weird when you can see human sort of skin color tones around the neckline of figures. So it's just a point of interest. Let's just take a quick little comparison of this figure to one of the earlier ones from Rogue One. This is the Imperial tank pilot. So we can have a look, because this is one of the first appearances of the helmet. We can sort of see it is, you know, supposed to be the same one. But this one is a sculpted helmet. It doesn't pop off. There isn't a head to display underneath this one. It's sort of sculpted on the peg. So we can see that this one is subtly bigger. If I put them side by side and try and hold them very still, this one is subtly bigger. But of course it does have to fit over a, you know, a sculpted face. But it's not too noticeable that it throws off the proportions of the figure. I don't think it's like too noticeable. I think you could have these on the shelf and you really got to pick them up side by side to notice the difference there. But yeah, just thought that was interesting. You can see some of the other sort of armor details, things like the boots look like they are the same, similar belts. Just having a closer look at the pants. They are different sculpted pants. I'm always kind of curious about that. They do look quite different. The sculpting line's a little bit similar here. This one feels like we've got swishes this way. This one's got down lines. So I feel like they're different. That one's got a harder line here than here. So yeah, interesting to see that it doesn't look like they've just reused, because we've got the same sort of thigh top line here that this one does, hidden underneath the tunic there. But yeah, the boots are, I guess, probably the same. Very, very similar. But yeah, they look different with the different paint apps. But yeah, and of course you can see this one's holding the classic blaster. So here we can see the sort of similar Imperial tank driver type helmet and some of the armor components. But yeah, just an interesting reference to see how the sculpt on these helmets looks side by side. So yeah, all in all, I'm quite happy with this figure. He's a good Imperial one. If you're sort of the person that just likes the Imperial troopers in that, you can of course use him like this alongside your others. And then of course, if you want to sort of recreate Mandalorian scenes, you've got Migs there in his attire. I do hope we see a season 1 Migs figure in the vintage collection line. He has that really cool sort of shoulder cannon from the prison episode. And I really hope perhaps we haven't seen the last of this character in The Mandalorian. I think he's a lot of fun and a really good figure. So definitely happy to add him to our Mandalorian collection. Every time there's a Target exclusive or Walmart or whatever in the US, we're never quite sure if we're going to get them here in New Zealand. So very, very happy that he did turn up and in pretty good numbers. There was a pretty substantial number on the shelf at our local store, so we could go through and make sure that both the backing card and the figure were in good condition. And so yeah, really happy. He looks really good. Definitely keen to put him on the shelf and add them to our collection. So thank you so much for watching my little unboxing here and sort of in-hand up-close review of the figure. We'll have some photos up on the blog so we can really show off some of this paint app detail, show you guys a really good close-up look at the face sculpt, because it's really good. It really does look like the actor. That's always important, isn't it? That you do really, it doesn't want to just look like generic guy in costume. It does look like the character. So all in all, a great figure. Thank you so much for watching, and may the force be with you. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you.